Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Thursday. Thanks for being with us. You ought to be fired up for this Thursday. If you're any kind of a sports fan, a big 4-game series starting for the Royals tonight in Houston. College football is back. The Jayhawks take the field tonight. It is a big, big sports day, and we are going to cover it all in the next 3 hours here on 580 Sports Talk, on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video stream, which you can find on our Facebook page, WIBW News, and on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis, and look who's here. Look who's here today. Producer, engineer for the day, Trenton Kraxner.
Hey!
I told you I'd bring you back. Trent
Better than
Kraxner
ever.
making an appearance today because he and Brendan, along with Fletcher Terrell, are going to carpool to Emporia here in about an hour and a half. I almost called him Fletcher McGee again. I almost did it.
3 dudes carpooling from Topeka to Emporia sounds like the worst movie I've ever heard of.
It's, 55 miles. It's late, and Brendan is wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
You've got the Aviators today. People on the YouTube can see. He's so fired up for the start of Ichabod football. He's got the Aviators. Trenton's got the mustache.
He's got
the Aviators.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
It's going to be hot and sunny.
Between the two of you, you've got the Ramathorn from Super Troopers aesthetic down. But now, if Trent goes with the Aviators, he's really got it down.
That's what everyone called me at school this week. It's like, you look like Super Troopers. Like, or Top Gun.
That movie's had quite a shelf life, Super Troopers.
It really has.
I never saw the sequel. I have no desire to see the sequel. The original lives rent-free in my head to this day.
Unlike Brendan, who gets to sit in the air conditioner, I have to be down in the heat and then looking into the sun probably all night, which is better than last year when Washburn played at Emporia State, because it was cold and rainy and cloudy all day, and it was miserable.
Yeah, bright side is the rain shouldn't hit Emporia until the end of the game is over tonight, so we should be good.
Favorite bit from Super Troopers?
Never seen it.
Wow, you need to see it.
Oh God,
It's a syrup drinking contest. I refer
probably.
to my infant son as getting a little antsy in the pantsy all the time, every day. I think I make that reference. We are delighted that you are with us. We have so much to get to. Washburn football is back in action tonight. We're going to preview the season a little bit with Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. He'll join us for the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight coming up a little later on this hour. And then Brendan, Trenton, and Fletcher Terrell will be the 3-man broadcast crew over on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. 6:30 pregame from Emporia, 7 o'clock kick, a Week 1 Turnpike tussle for the Washburn Ichabods against the Emporia State Hornets tonight. Again, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock kick on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9.
First time that has happened since 1966. That's the last time Washburn and Emporia State opened the season against one another.
That's awesome.
Been a while.
Yes.
I was not alive.
No, not even
None
close.
Yeah.
Not even close to alive. Anyhow, we are going to talk about that again, as we mentioned, with Rick Peterson. It's also the start of college football season in earnest tonight. We got the 4-game. We got a little taste. We got a little tease with Week 0 with the games that we had, 4 games last Saturday. Tonight, it really starts in earnest, and it starts for the Kansas Jayhawks at Children's Mercy Park in KCK as they take on the Lindenwood Lions. That is a 7 o'clock kick. Yours truly going to be in attendance. I will be ducking out of the show just before 5 o'clock and heading out to Legends and Children's Mercy Park. It's going to be very strange taking in a football game there. I'm excited to see what the atmosphere is like, and certainly excited to see the 22nd ranked Kansas Jayhawks open their 2024 season. We'll have some thoughts on that to lead the show. We'll also make our college football playoff predictions. We were going to do that yesterday. We shouldn't have any time. We were venting spleen about Matt Cottrero and the way the Royals ended up losing that game yesterday. So we never got to our college football playoff predictions. We're going to make those. We'll also welcome in the great Paul Myerberg of USA Today, our college football insider, for the first Big 12 football breakdown of the season. Paul's going to join us at 4:35 this afternoon. Plus, all the things you've come to know and love from a Thursday edition of the program. We will do a little either or over under on the show today. We will also start our semifinals for the month of August for What Is Wrong With You. That's coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Have our sports headlines in the 5 o'clock hour. The cast and crew will be whittled down as we go along today with Brendan and Trenton on their way to Emporia. Yours truly heading to Kansas City. Spencer's going to have the 5 o'clock hour for you. He'll get some choice cuts. He'll be mic'd up a little with Brett Veach. He'll preview that Royals-Astros series. We got overtime for you today. We're going to take you up to 6:30 and then hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network, and they will have pregame coverage. 7:10 first pitch tonight at Minute Maid Park in Houston. Game 1 of a 4-game series between the West-leading Astros and the Royals. You are, as always, invited and encouraged to be part of the show today. If you are watching live on the YouTube stream, again, the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can hit us up in the YouTube live chat, interact with fellow listeners and your hosts. You can also text the program. The Top City Metal Supply text line is 785-272-9429. From construction sites to renovations, from the farm to the garage, Top City Metal Supply understands the value of precision and cost efficiency. No more wasted materials, no more wasted money, just metal cut to the exact size you need. Top City Metal Supply is located on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. Tyler in the YouTube chat asked, what's the best cop movie ever? The correct answer is the original Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad.
Yeah,
That's
Naked Gun. If we're going non-comedy, well, Beverly Hills Cop is like dramedy, but I'm going Beverly Hills Cop. I do love that movie.
Yeah. It's also kind of a comedy.
Dramedy,
sort of a comedy. I don't know. Training Day is probably my favorite non-comedy cop movie.
Yeah, also a great one.
Yeah, that would be my favorite one. Anyhow, let's talk some football, shall we?
Let's do it.
The Jayhawks are back, and they are ranked number 22 in the country entering this 2024 season. They will take on the Lindenwood Lions. And as much as we'd like to dive into an in-depth preview of what this game is going to look like, there's not really a point. Kansas is going to walk a mud hole in Lindenwood tonight. Like, there's not really much doubt about this.
Yeah, I'm really regretting not putting down money when I could have. When the line yesterday was 44.5, it has moved at some books to 49.5 points.
Jeez.
Which essentially tells me that Vegas was worried about Jalen Daniels, and now they're not.
Yeah.
That's what that tells me.
Yeah, our guy, the Jayhawker, who's been checking in from Vegas this week, one of our frequent YouTube commenters was mentioning even as late as about the 5 o'clock hour yesterday, they didn't have a line posted at Circus Sports for the KU game, but they got a line up now, and it's big. It's big points. KU's going to win. KU's going to use this game as a tune-up in some ways, but they're also not going to be vanilla. They're not going to hold anything back. Lance Leipold said so himself with his remarks earlier this week. So really what it comes down to tonight is, what are you expecting? What are you hoping to see from the Jayhawks? What'll make you feel good in particular about Jalen Daniels? What kind of performance? Because ideally, he doesn't play all 4 quarters, right? Ideally, maybe he only plays a half, 3 quarters. You get him out for Cole Ballard or Isaiah Marshall.
Yep.
Have this be one of the games of the 4 that the true freshman can play that I know there's some excitement about. But what would make you feel good to see in a Jalen Daniels performance tonight?
We've got from YouTube user I'm Bomb in the 580 Sports Talk live chat. I got KU winning by 60. I would love to see that. That would be fantastic.
They might.
So I actually had 3 things in particular that I'm wanting to see. JD is at the top of the list. Just look like Jalen Daniels that we've seen when you've been healthy on the field. That's it. That's all it comes down to. You're right. I only need to see a half. I only really want to see a half. I would love it if KU cruised so easily in this game that you got 2 quarters of Jalen Daniels, a 3rd quarter of Cole Ballard, a 4th quarter of Isaiah Marshall, and that was it. You didn't have to worry about anything else beyond that. Just be healthy, because when he's healthy, he's one of the most dynamic and, frankly, best college football quarterbacks in the entire country. So that is number 1. I don't really have anything deeper than that. Like, I want to see him out there. Remember last season, he didn't play week 1.
Yeah.
All that, he didn't even play. He played 3 weeks after that, or the next 3 weeks after that.
And then that was it.
Week 1.
We didn't see him after that again.
So just get out there, be healthy, look like Jalen. Look like 80% of what we normally get from Jalen Daniels. Be ready to go for Illinois with a little extra rest, and we're good to go. So that's really all that I'm worried about or interested in, because just in terms of talent, Lindenwood doesn't have the horses, man. They don't. God bless them, but they're not built for this. And I mean, they're 3 years out of Division II into FCS. They were 3-7 against FCS competition in a bad league last year. KU should steamroll them, and I think JD's going to steamroll them. Number 2 on the list for me, how much of a dent is Devin Neal going to make in the all-time rushing record chase in KU history? led Michael Swain a little astray the other day when I said that he's about 800-ish yards away. I think it's about 767 or so is how far away he is from the all-time KU record. Let him run for 200 yards today. And you don't want him to get hurt. You don't want him to get worn down, but you've got extra time before you end up taking on Illinois in 2 weekends' time. Let him run for 150. Let him run for 200. Just make that record as easy as possible to go get. There is nobody on Lindenwood. I guarantee you there is nobody who can compete as an athlete and as a football player with number 4 for Kansas, Devin Neal. So let him run wild. The last thing, and this is the most, I know Devin Neal is going to be great as long as he doesn't get hurt in this game. I know Jalen Daniels is going to be great as long as he is at full strength in this game. The position where I have the most desire to see somebody really stand out and pop, it is your secondary pass rushers, especially your edge pass rushers for KU. We know what Jeremy Robinson is going to be. He's a nice player. He is their most reliable edge player, both against the run and as a pass rusher. I'm not worried about Jeremy Robinson. Dylan Wudke has really come on in the last couple of weeks. The graduate transfer from Youngstown State. Really heard some good things about him. Michael talked to us about that during Jayhawk Weekly back on Tuesday. Also, you throw in on the other side of the line, all the young guys, obviously, by Job. You throw in DJ Warner. We'll see how much Dak Brinkley ends up getting into this game. So you've got a number of guys, and I know I'm missing one off the top of my head too. Dean Miller, that's who it is, who has changed his body type completely. He used to look like me lining up at edge in terms of just his slight slim frame. He has bulked up a ton. That has helped him quite a bit as well in terms of using some of that pass rush arsenal, that arsenal of moves to get around tackles, especially inferior talented ones like they'll face against Lindenwood. So I want to see those guys have a good game, because if Wudke and Miller, Wudke's going to be number 2 on the strong side behind Jeremy Robinson, and then you're going to have Miller probably starting on the weak side defensive end spot. I want to see those two have good games. I don't need to see 3 sacks apiece or anything, but get to the quarterback, hit him a few times, win those matchups, because if you can't dominate against Lindenwood's tackles, I am going to be very concerned when they have to take on Oklahoma State and Kansas State and Iowa State and some of the better teams from the Big 12.
So here are some questions to noodle on as we project out the season for the Kansas Jayhawks. Devin Neal has increased his rushing yards each of his first 3 seasons as a Jayhawk. 707 yards as a freshman, 1,090 yards as a sophomore, 1,280 yards as a junior. Does he take one more step up? Can he break the 1,300-yard mark in rushing this season?
I mean, I hope so, but I'm going to say no, because I think they're going to use a bunch of high shot, especially if it does turn out, if you, and I got to pull the schedule up here so I can give you a better grasp of, what part of the year you might feel like, oh God, it's really real for this team. If KU gets to, hell man, October 26th, when it's Sunflower Showdown time, until that point, KU is Lindenwood, Illinois, UNLV, at West Virginia, which I know is worrying a lot of people, TCU, Arizona State, Houston. That is very, very possibly a 7-0 football team. Like, that is absolutely within the realm of possibility. I mean, if you get to that part of the year, you want Devin Neal to be at his healthiest and to be at his freshest. So you can say, hey, when we have to take on K-State in Manhattan, you have Iowa State at home at Arrowhead. That might feel like a road game with how well Iowa State fans travel to Kansas City. You want Devin Neal at full strength. So I think in this first half of the year, you're going to see a lot of Daniel Highshaw. You are going to see a lot of Harry Stewart. You might even see some Sevian Morrison. Those guys are going to get rotated in because they want to keep Neal fresh. I think he gets to 1,000. I don't think he can get to 1,300, though. And it's not because of anything related to Devin Neal. He's too good to get that many carries against a pretty beatable first half of this schedule.
No, that's entirely fair. And they do have a good running back room. Daniel Highshaw got 121 carries last year to Neal's 203.
He's so good. He would start at so many other programs.
I would imagine the carry share might look pretty similar this year. If anything, there might be less quarterback run than there was last year, just for the sake of keeping JD healthy, which could be some additional opportunities for Devin Neal. Maybe he takes some Wildcat type snaps to get him the ball going downhill in a different way. I think 1,300 is within his reach because I think he can average 6.5 yards a carry. I think that's the biggest thing. He was at 6.3 last year. So 1,300 is within reach. And if he can get any higher than that, I mean, the other thing, too, is if they are rolling, I don't think Lance Leipold's the kind of coach that would let a guy pad stats for the sake of a Heisman bid.
No.
But it's not out of the question that Kansas might sniff around at that if they come out.
To be fair, we don't know that.
Yeah. We don't. Yeah, it's not something Lance Leipold's dealt with. He hasn't had a Heisman candidate on his roster before. So, just some things to watch with Devin Neal. How about this question? Make a prediction right now. Who is the leading receiver for the Kansas Jayhawks at the end of the season?
Lawrence Arnold.
In yards and receptions?
Grimm in receptions, Arnold in yards.
I like that because I think Grimm is kind of the safety valve, the underneath guy.
Well, he and Daniels came in together. They're tight. Luke told us last season the kind of bond that the two of them have.
Well, and I think Skinner's his roommate, right? Or is Skinner Neal? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question. I actually don't remember. But yeah,
there's a closeness between JD and these receivers.
If you could, I think, make an argument that all three of them could lead the team in one category or another. And if you were to say, like, mix and match who's going to go where, I'd tell you Grimm receptions, Arnold touchdowns, Skinner yards.
Interesting.
But if you're just saying receptions and yards, give me Arnold and give me Grimm.
For the record, it was Arnold last year who led in receptions and in yards, and he and Grimm each had 6 TDs.
Yeah.
So,
and Grimm was banged up for part of the year.
Yeah, that's also true. Did miss some snaps. Who's going to lead the Jayhawks in sacks?
Man, I'm going to go with Robinson. I think he is going to be on the field the most, which is going to influence that. He's your most stable, steady guy. I do not think he's the highest. In fact, I don't think I would even put him in the. He might be top 3 in highest ceiling among their edge guys, but the two guys with the highest ceilings are both young. They're both true freshmen in Warner and Brinkley. I would love to see it be DJ Warner and see him just be Austin Booker as a true freshman. I don't think that is going to happen. So I think I'm just going to go with the safe bet.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm leaning. I think there could be a big step forward for Jeremy Robinson this year. I think it's 4.5 sacks last year. Not out of the question he approaches Booker's 8 sacks this season, I think. All right. Which game on the schedule are you the most afraid of as a Jayhawk fan? Which game, or I would say games plural, but give me just one game on the schedule. And let's set aside the showdown for now because KU's lost that since Hector was a pup. But what games on the schedule strike you as trap games that you're kind of nervous about, feel close to coin flips, or maybe not a good spot for KU?
I think it's Arrowhead Stadium against Iowa State. I really think that I have seen so many people, whether it's national folks, whether it is beat writers, whether it is the KU blogosphere, whoever. Oh, God, man, that West Virginia game, that's going to be a tough one. Dude, I don't think it is. Like, I am not buying West Virginia at all. And I'm sorry to Spencer because I know he and I are on opposite sides of this. He thinks last year was a sign that they're on the way up. I think they were paper tigers. I think if they thought they were going to be good, Neil Brown was going to get more than a 1-year extension. I don't believe in Garrett Green. I don't believe in that roster. I think they'll be good in the trenches. I don't believe in that roster. So I'm not nearly as worried about that game as others are. Famous last words, of course. I think Iowa State, you and I are on opposing sides of them. Maybe you don't think they're going to be bad by any means, but I think they're going to be really good. And they're going to fill the place. There might be more Iowa State fans than Kansas fans at Arrowhead Stadium for that game. Iowa State fans do everything possible to leave Ames at the drop of a hat. They will go anywhere, especially if that anywhere is Kansas City, Missouri. So I think that is, and especially because that is the quote-unquote home game, I think that is your most likely trap game where KU is going to be favored, but I think Iowa State is going to give them a run for their money. And if I'm going to give them the record I'm going to give them here in just a second, I think that might be one of the losses.
Tyler in the YouTube live chat says BYU on the road is
tough place
one
to play.
that stands out. It is a tough place to play. I just think BYU's roster is not good.
Who's their quarterback? It's that guy from Baylor last year, right?
Is
Bohannon?
Did Bohannon get
I
the
thought
job?
it was Ratzlaff. I thought Ratzlaff won the job.
I was going to say, I remember we looked at their quarterback room like a month and a half ago or whatever, and they were like a bunch of Jags.
It stinks. Their room is terrible.
Like, I think we could go fill out their depth chart, us three.
All right. So according to the Deseret, it's not public yet, but most signs point to Jake Retzlaff.
Yeah, they've said they have a clear-cut starter, but they won't say who it is, which leads me to believe it's Retzlaff.
Who are they playing? Who is BYU playing this week?
It's like Southern Illinois or something like that.
They are. They're playing the Salukis. Kalani Sataki. I like you, man. I really do. If you can't name a starter publicly against Southern Illinois, it's over, brother. It's done. You're cooked. You're babying, man.
Yeah, that
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Name a starter. This is so dumb. This is the dumbest thing that teams do.
All right, let's make a final record prediction. I've got 10-2 for KU. And that is, of course, like if Jalen Daniels misses any kind of time, all bets are off.
Right.
Like I wouldn't touch like an actual futures on this team with a 99.5-foot pole because Daniels has to show me he can stay on the field for a full season. He hasn't done that yet. But I think if he's healthy, operating under the assumption that the best version of this Kansas team is going to take the field 12 times, I think they're going to win 10 games. I have them losing at Morgantown. I have them losing the showdown. And I think that that'll have them one game out of finishing where they need to make the conference championship game. But double-digit win season for the first time since 2007 would be pretty sweet.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I am going to go with 10-2 as well. I think it'll be K-State. I would love to pick KU to beat K-State. I would love to do it. It's been 15 years, man. Like I gotta see it. And I understand, KU fans who say that we've got the better quarterback and the better offensive roster. And I don't disagree with that, like at all, to be frank with you. But it just always happens. And I need to see it. I hope it happens for, the fan part of my, my life. But I don't know how you can pick against K-State in that game. And I'm going to say it's Iowa State as the other one. I think that is Trappy McTrap game at Arrowhead Stadium. I'll go 10-2.
Would it be a bold prediction to say KU and K-State's going to play each other in Arlington as well?
I would not call that a bold prediction at all. I think that's entirely possible.
I would say bold, but I would say very plausible.
Because I think KU wins the showdown this year, only on the fact that KU returns more. I think both teams are going to be great, but I think K-State has more question marks than KU at roster, top to bottom on their roster anyway.
Interesting.
I get it. It's like the little brother syndrome where like we can't beat these guys. Like it's a mental game, but like I think KU has more like less question marks is why I would give them the edge.
I just hope we get to see the best versions of both teams.
Agreed.
And that would include Jalen Daniels at quarterback when they play this year.
I would say for me, for Kansas State, and we'll get to the Cats tomorrow, but I think it's less so like a question mark in the sense of who is going to play. I think I have just so many questions about how close are these dudes going to get to their ceiling. That includes Avery Johnson. That includes the wide receivers. I like the wide receiver room. I don't think they're anywhere close to what they could be, but how close to that potential are they going to get? I'm not worried about the running backs. They're going to be great. Offensive line is going to look different. What does that look like? I have concerns about the defensive backfield. So I think if they all hit the most likely outcomes, K-State's going to win 10 or 11 games, and they're going to be a playoff team. But I do think you can say, we know what all these dudes for KU are. Save for 2 defensive ends and 2 linebackers, we know what pretty much everyone is for KU. And I think that can help.
We are going to preview K-State in depth tomorrow on the show. Their season opener Saturday night at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. The Jayhawks opening tonight against Lindenwood at Children's Mercy Park. I'll be there. If you subscribe to our YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, you'll get an instant reaction video after the press conferences have wrapped up. I'll film one from out at CMP, and we'll have some content for you on the YouTube, so subscribe if you want to see that. Again, 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. Still to come this hour, Rick Peterson will join us for the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight, but first, a little either or over-under coming up here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Just getting rolling on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Brendan, Spencer, and Trenton Kraxner producing and engineering for us for the first part of today's show. Great to have you aboard 580 WIBW, the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe today to the YouTube stream. I gave you another immaculate grid with Dan today. If you're subscribed, you can every now and again follow along as I fill out a baseball immaculate grid. I might do a football one down the road. I'm not as good at the football ones, but I'll throw you a football one at some point as well. So subscribe again to the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Also, stay tuned today. We're going to give away a family 4-pack of tickets to the PBR Outlaw Days, T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. We've got tickets for Friday, September 6th. It's a family 4-pack of tickets to the PBR Outlaw Days. That's the rodeo, if you don't know. And we're going to give a 4-pack away every day on the show starting today and into next week as well. So be on the lookout for that. Right now, before we get to Rick Peterson of TopSports.News, quick round of either or over-under. Over-under 9.5 bowl-eligible Big 12 teams this season.
9.5. Ooh.
So I set the number here because when I went through the schedule, I got to 10.
Okay.
I'll take the over. I'll take your 10.
So I will go with
the teams I had not making a bowl for what it is worth. Cincinnati, Colorado, Arizona State, Houston, BYU, and Baylor.
Yeah, I think we've got the same group here. I'm going to go over. I'll say 10.
Yeah.
Arizona, Iowa State, KU, State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Tech, UCF, Utah, West Virginia. So aside from Arizona, it's just all the teams that are alphabetically first in the league are out. And everyone Iowa State and beyond makes it in. Yeah, I'll go over. I'll say 10.
All right. Anybody else got either
All
over under?
I've got an over under for you. Over under 2.5 American League Central teams that make the postseason.
2.5.
2.5 American League Central.
Over.
Teams.
I think the Twins are getting in. I think they'll right the ship, and I think Boston will not. I think Seattle, this is a death rattle. And honestly, the team that's the friskiest right now is Detroit, but they just played the White Sox. So do those wins really count?
And the Angels. The Tigers did. Is that who you just mentioned? Or did I just have a stroke on the air?
No. The Tigers,
okay, you did say Tigers.
Yes, they've played the White Sox. And now they're playing the Angels.
They're currently playing the Angels. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not buying their recent surge.
I heard Tigers, then I immediately thought, did I actually hear Tigers?
I'll go over as well. I think the Twins do make it along with the Royals.
Twins are up 3 games on Boston for that final spot.
Yeah, I just think I don't think Boston's gonna do anything.
Yeah, they're floundering.
I think Boston catches Minnesota because they play at Fenway middle of August, or not August, September. I think the Twins and Guardians each have a tough schedule down the stretch comparatively to the Royals. I don't think Minnesota makes it.
Interesting.
I think they get swept in Fenway.
Interesting.
Wow.
We'll take a break. We got to get to Rick Peterson of TopSports.News for our Top City Local Sports Spotlight, sponsored by Lewis Toyota. That's coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. It's the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight with the great Rick Peterson of TopSports.News, who covers Shawnee County High School sports and the Washburn Ichabods for TopSports.News. You can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, it's game week for the Washburn Ichabods, and this is a big year for Washburn. Coming off of a 2-9 campaign last year, Craig Schurig and the crew really need to right the ship. You've been around the team. You've talked to Coach Schurig. You've talked to the players. Do you sense that urgency in the program, that they understand that this is a year that they need to get back to really being competitive in the MIAA?
Yeah, I do, and you know they have something to prove after last year's 2-9 team. Although a lot of that was out of their control, but I think they got better depth this year because of the problems last year. Got a lot of young guys, some time to play, but what a tough start. I mean, if you guys, I've heard you guys doing your KU, breakdown of games. If you look at Washburn, they're the underdogs in all three of their first three games. So I think the big thing for them is try to show that they can get one or two of those, but also just show that they're a lot better football team this year, because the second half of the schedule, I think, is very much in their favor.
Yeah, Pistol, it's 3 straight top 10 teams. And the first 2 games of the season, I was talking to Coach Schurig about this yesterday. Emporia State last year, the number 3 offense in the nation. Colorado Mines, number 2. And they'll play UCM, who is number 1 later on in this season. As for this game tonight against Emporia State, how important do you think it's going to be to get off to a hot start in the first quarter and the first half? Because last year, it was 21-0 in the blink of an eye going to Emporia State's way. How big is a hot start going to be?
Oh, that would be huge. Like I said, they're going to have a tough time, but it would be huge. I think even more big for the Ichabods is come out and show they can play with this type of a team. They're the underdog. I mean, you said it. I mean, Emporia State's a very good team. They're at home. It's a season opener, which is always big. But if they can show they're competitive and can be competitive with a team like this, or a team like Mines, or a team like Pitt State, I think it really bodes for them. I tell you what, I may be off a little bit here. I think they can win 6 games this year, and if they could get 1 or 2 of these early, I'll rewrite that. But I think they could win 6 games.
That would be an incredible season for this team, and health is obviously going to be such a big deal there. It was the defense especially that was just destroyed by injuries last year, Pistol. But everybody healthy going into week 1, obviously huge and needed against an Emporia State team that runs a ton of plays, throws the ball around the yard a ton. What part of the defense for the Ichabods do you think needs to be at its pristine best tonight? Is it that secondary trying to slow down some of those pass catchers, or is it going to be the defensive line trying to get after starting quarterback Gunnar Gundy?
Well, both. but obviously the defensive backs are going to be tested, and Coach Schurig and I talked about that yesterday. But if they could get some heat on a new quarterback, I think that could play into their favor too. So, yeah, I didn't give you a very good answer there, but I really think it's both. I think they really have to get some heat on Gundy, and I think they can't let Tyler Common and those guys just run wild.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. It's our Lewis Toyota local sports spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. Go check out all of Pistol's phenomenal work at TopSports.News, covering all of our county and city high school teams, plus Washburn University. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Peterson_Rick. On the offensive side, game to you, if you were in Coach Schurig's shoes, would this be a game where you're trying to match them throw for throw and try to really have a shootout kind of game? Or do you think slowing down the tempo, maybe leaning on the run game a bit more, would serve Washburn better?
I don't know. I'm curious to see what the run game's going to look like. They got a whole new offensive line pretty much, although Coach Schote told me yesterday that he really likes the way the offensive line's performing. So I got to see what the offensive attack. I know they can throw the ball. They got a great group of receivers, and I know they can throw the ball. But again, you gotta protect Van Dyne, and you got to get those receivers open. I look for them to give the ball to Trey Richardson in several different ways. Same way with DJ. I think they're going to give those guys every way they can get them the ball. They're going to get them the ball. Kind of like the J.J. Letcher, Peter Offal days.
We are talking to Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. This is the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline every Thursday at this time to talk all things local sports here in Shawnee County, high school sports, and the Washburn Ichabods. You can follow him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Over at TopSports.News, Pistol, you're rolling out the prep parade. You've got your preseason Shawnee County high school football previews going up, and your most recent two on the front page today of TopSports.News are previews of, I think, two of the most interesting teams in the county. I'll ask about Shawnee Heights first, since you published your preview of them today. They lost a lot from an 8-win team last year, but typically that would be a sign that a rebuilding year is coming, but that's not what Jason Swift thinks about this group. He thinks he got a lot of kids, some experience last year, and he's really excited about his quarterback, Aiden Scott.
Yeah, and that's what he said. You know, I think I said in the story, he losing 20 starters. He has 2 defensive starters back, none on offense, and he has his kicker back. But, you know, you could look on that as a big problem, but he looks at it as an opportunity for the guys that didn't get to play as much last year because of that, 26 seniors, I think. So he likes them, and he really likes, Aiden Scott's already got an offer from Washburn. He's bumped up to about 6'4". I think if they can protect him, I think he could be a star. And Tyron Parker's already got offers from KU, K-State, and Iowa State. So he can be a star on both sides of the ball.
From a budding star at quarterback to a player who was the star in the United Kansas Conference last year, Max Huston, the quarterback at Seaman, back for his senior year. And what's fascinating about Huston, Pistol, is that he didn't really fully commit to football until last year. He was kind of a baseball guy. He had committed, I think, to Kansas State to play baseball, and now he's decided that he's all in on football. He's all in now for his senior year at quarterback. So there's a chance the young man that led the state in passing yards last year could get even better. Is that the sense you got from his coach, Jared Swafford?
Yes, and the thing that makes him good, you know, you're only as good as the people around you. And he's got a really good receiver in Briar Finley. He's got a really good tight end in Noah Kobacheski, and they got some good guys up front. So, you know, yes, Huston's very, very good, but he's also got really good people around him. I think they're one of the best teams in 5A, I think, if they can put it all together.
Rick Peterson, our guest. This is the Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. I believe we have a competition week this week, Pistol. If I'm not mistaken, there are some activities going on this weekend, or we have to wait till early next week to get it going?
Nope. I'll be at soccer tomorrow. So, and a good one. Washburn Rural versus Manhattan right off the bat.
Great Centennial League matchup. What are you looking forward to seeing from rural soccer the first time you get out to see them?
Same thing I've seen for whatever it's been, 30 years. They're going to be good. They're going to be good. They got 3 juniors that were on like a national championship club team. They got really good. Dylan Willingham is as good as there is around town. And, I think they're going to be very, very good. And there's a reason they've won 29 straight league titles or something. So they're going to be very good.
Pistol, if we can zigzag back to football really quickly here, one of your other prep parade stories from earlier this week about Highland Park, and Jermaine Monroe's group is going to be really good again this year. I have no doubts. Even though they're a little bit banged up going into the season, they're going to be dang good. They're going to challenge for a Meadowlark Conference championship again. My question about this Park team, what is it going to take to get to that next level? And it might already feel like they got there. I mean, 7-3 a year ago after 6-3 the year before, won a playoff game for the first time since 1991. It was such a great accomplishment for the Scots. What is it going to take for them to win the Meadowlark Conference and to maybe go from, hey, a playoff win is a cool story to multiple playoff wins is the expectation?
Okay. And I know exactly the answer I'm going to give you on this. They got, everybody complains, outside of, outside Highland Park. Everybody complains about, the Meadowlark Conference not very good, blah, blah, blah. Atchison's good, but other than that, it's not very good. You got to strengthen your schedule, and I think they have. They play a Wichita East team this year that I was really, really impressed with last year against Washburn Rural. If their best player hadn't got hurt, that game might have went down to the wire.
I'm with you. We were all there for that game. It was if I remember correctly, sectional round maybe last season, and that was a good Wichita East team.
They played twice. It was the first game of the year, too.
And then, exactly. And played twice. And a great game. And I'm right there with you, Pistol.
And I call it the quarterfinals, Brendan. I can't figure out sectional and by district and quad district and all. I just say quarterfinals, semifinals, and state championship.
That's okay by us, Pistol, because whatever you call them, your analysis of them and your writing about them is unmatched. Rick Peterson of TopSports.News for our Lewis Toyota Local Sports Spotlight every Thursday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Pistol, great to talk to you. Next week, we'll preview week 1 of the high school football season.
I'll be ready.
All right. That is Rick Peterson. We'll take a quick break, come back, wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk next. Want to remind folks that you can join Prairie Band Sportsbook's free NFL Survivors pool for a chance to win up to $25,000. It's a free pool to enter. If you win the Survivor pool, you win $5,000, and if you run the table, you can win up to $25,000. Enter today before September 5th. Make sure you enter before the NFL season starts. prairieband.chalklinegames.com/games/survivor. prairieband.chalklinegames.com/games/survivor to join Prairie Band Sportsbook's free NFL Survivor pool. Royals and Astros tonight, game 1 of 4 in the series. Remember what happened the last time the Royals faced tonight's Astros starter, Hunter Brown?
They put up. He didn't even get out of the first inning.
He did not get out of the first inning. I knew Trenton would know. I know Trenton got me if nobody else got me.
Also, he started last year against the Royals when the Royals won 5 out of 6 from Houston. He went like 3 innings to give up like 7 runs. So like it's pretty easy to say the Royals own this dude.
You had to skip his start at this point.
A career ERA against the Royals of 36.82 for Hunter Brown in 2 career starts. That's who starts for Houston tonight. He has thrown the ball very well in each of his last 4 starts, and really 6 of his last 7, a 2.14 ERA in his last 7 starts. But perhaps the Royals will be able to solve him. Brady Singer on the mound for Kansas City tonight. 7:10 first pitch, 6:30 pregame here on the Royals Baseball Network on 580 WIBW. Some news and notes from Major League Baseball today. Teams are starting to release players to the waiver wire.
There was one very funny waiver release today.
So
Just a
Tommy
little bit ago.
Pham has been reportedly released by St. Louis. He's in their dugout right now. They're playing, so he's still in the dugout. I don't know if he knows he's been waived, but one player I actually think is an interesting possible waiver claim for the Royals would be Robbie Grossman, who's reportedly been waived by the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Switch hitter, left-handed thrower, hasn't played any center field this year, but he's OPSing .819 against left-handed pitching in 103 plate appearances. And the Royals could use an outfielder who can hit left-handers and who isn't Garrett Hampson, who can't hit left-handers.
So here is my checklist. And if Robbie Grossman clears all the check boxes, I would say go sign him. Number 1, is he Garrett Hampson?
No.
Okay, check that box. Number 2, is he Adam Frazier?
No.
Okay, he checks that box. Those are the only 2 on the list. Go get him.
Yeah, I would like to see the Royals at least try and be active on the waiver wire here in the coming days. We got hour number 2 coming up, our college football predictions, and Paul Myerberg. Lots of college football coming in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Let's get it. Hour number 2, 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Great thanks to everybody who is hanging out with us on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on the video stream. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel, WIBW News on Facebook, where you can watch us as well. We got some trash talk. We got some Turnpike Tussle trash talk.
The hell is this, Casey?
In the YouTube live chat today, you got Casey says Washburn is going down. Stingers up, go Hornets. Voice of the Ichabods, Brendan Dworzinski, a rebuttal.
No. Not that I won't rebut. I'm no to that. I am excited for this game. I mean, rivalry games, you can throw all the records out the window. No love lost between these two programs. I'm excited for it, though. I am very hopeful for this Washburn season after how difficult last year was, that with a healthy team, with a now second-year full-time starting quarterback in Sam Van Dyne, a lot of defensive players, who are back after missing time last year, including some really key guys for this team. I'm really hopeful. And look, you get a rivalry game week 1. It's weird. I'm not going to lie. It is very weird, especially for a midweek game with a bye next week. But I'm super excited about it. I was excited to tell you this, Spencer. Little football history for you. Do you like the forward pass? Do you like passing in football?
Yes, I do.
Were you aware that the first game to ever feature legal forward passing involved the Washburn Ichabods?
I did not know that.
Christmas Day, 1905, Washburn versus Fairmount State, which is now Wichita State. Fairmont State, yeah. No, Fairmount State.
Oh, Fairmount.
Yeah, no, Fairmont State currently exists. Fairmount is what Wichita State used to be called.
Oh.
First ever game with a forward pass.
How about that?
Christmas Day,
Learned something new today.
1905.
The Casey lore continues. Look at the next comment. That her boss is Fletcher.
My boss, Fletcher,
Fletch.
is Brendan's side. Well, there you go. We'll have to ask Fletch about Casey.
Some back and
see him
forth
here in like
between
40
Casey
minutes,
and Fletcher Terrell, who's the color analyst on the Washburn radio broadcast. Brendan on the play-by-play. Trent Craxer, who's helping us out this afternoon. We have Trenton back for a couple of hours, which the YouTube live chat is very appreciative of. You guys are going to be on the call tonight as Washburn takes on Emporia State. That's on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. Pregame at 6:30, kickoff at 7 from Welch Stadium in Emporia. And we welcome all our listeners in Emporia.
Yes.
I know they can hear us in Pittsburgh. They can hear us all over MIAA country.
Oh,
You hear us in Wichita. You hear us in Hayes. You can hear us all over MIAA
Hey,
country.
we got some guy named we have David watching
Some
us.
guy. Yeah, David's been hanging out with us a little bit on Facebook recently.
Cedar Hill, Texas.
So shout out to David checking in from Texas. We appreciate everybody listening today. If
Or
you're
watching.
catching us on the YouTube 580 Sports Talk, catch us on Facebook, WIBW News. We appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. We have got in this 4 o'clock hour, Paul Myerberg, one of our favorite guests. Paul Myerberg of USA Today, covers college football, graciously joining us again throughout the college football season for the Big 12 football breakdown. We will talk to Paul at the bottom of this hour. We also have our August semifinals of What Is Wrong With You. 5 stories that have won their respective weeks, a couple of short week winners in the play-in game. We got all your favorites from the month. The stinky feet shooting, the bag of drugs, the chess player who poisoned her opponent, a story that I titled Chicken Seasoned with Assault, which is one of the more clever titles we've come up with this year. We got all your favorites coming back to compete for the August championship. We got the semifinals coming up in just a little bit.
Reminds me of when Salt and Peppa had an album named Assault with a Deadly Peppa.
Did they really?
Oh, yeah. You didn't know that?
No, that rocks. That absolutely rocks. Anyway, we are going to start the hour, though, with something we were going to do yesterday, and we didn't get around to it. We were jam-packed with Royals and Chiefs stuff. We never got around to it. So we're going to do it again today because, with all due respect to week 0 and the 4 games that were played last Saturday, college football really gets going tonight. There are games on the schedule tonight of intrigue. Minnesota, North Carolina should be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado plays North Dakota State.
North Dakota State's going to win.
There's going to be schadenfreude on a level you have never seen if Colorado loses to North Dakota State. They better not lose to North Dakota State.
I won't be here for some game picks that Spencer's going to make in the 5 o'clock hour, but I will tell you this right now. I think everyone is stuck in 2014. North Dakota State's head coach left to be an FBS linebackers coach. You know who their 2 previous coaches ago, what he left to do? Coach at Kansas State.
Yeah.
As the head coach.
Yeah.
That ain't the same program anymore. I'm on Colorado. But I will admit, I'm also on Colorado at a line you can no longer get anywhere. I got way better value at 7.5. You can get it 10.5 now.
I still think North Dakota State can line up and punch Colorado in the mouth a little bit in the trenches. I do think Colorado probably wins. It's at home. They're going to be geared up. They're not going to overlook North Dakota State, but that's going to be an uncomfortable 60 minutes of football for Coach Prime and company, I think, tonight.
If they lose, oh no. And I mean Colorado being if they lose, like,
you better not.
I don't think CU is going to be all that good. I do think they're good enough that they're going to win tonight by like 10 to 12 points. But man, that program's done a lot of time. It's not just Coach Prime. It's everybody, notably his kid as well. A lot of talk in this offseason. You can't lose to an FCS team at home, even if it is North Dakota State.
So with that and the college football season getting underway tonight, it's time to make some predictions for the college football playoff, which moves to 12 teams for the first time ever. 4 byes, which are the conference champions in the Power 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have 6 at-large teams or 7 at-large teams and a G5 automatic qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 12 teams in total. The G5 team that automatically qualifies, again, it's all picked by the committee.
They don't necessarily get the 5 seed, by the way.
No, they don't
could
get
be
the 5.
anywhere 5 to 12.
And most likely they're going to be the 12. Let's just be really honest about what the
Unless
what
they're
the
really dang
G5
good, yeah.
and then Notre Dame would not be considered the G5 automatic qualifier. They would just be considered for an at-large bid if indeed they have a good enough season. So 3 of us, let's get our predictions in for this college football season. And by way of picking the byes, we are essentially again picking our Power 4 conference champions, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC. I am going with Georgia to win the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's going to win the SEC. The ACC, I hate it, but I'm picking Clemson. Now, would I be picking Clemson if I hadn't seen the wet fart of a performance that Florida State submitted last Saturday in Dublin? I think I still might, because here's the thing about Clemson. Even if I'm not a big Cade Klubnik fan, they're still going to run the ball really well. And their defense was filthy last year, and all those guys almost are back, especially their best defensive linemen. And we've seen what Clemson teams with elite defensive lines do. Usually it involves like winning national championships.
Yeah.
And they've got like Peter Woods is a star. So I really like what Dabo has, and I don't think it's a great ACC this year. I think it's there for the taking for Clemson, even if I think Georgia might walk a mud hole in them on Saturday morning in Atlanta. Anyway, I think Ohio State is going to win the Big Ten, and boy, they better. They better, with all the NIL money they sunk into that team to turn over that roster, with all the money they spent to take Chip Kelly away and bring his offense in, they better win the Big Ten. Because if they don't win the Big Ten, and I mean this, if they don't win the Big Ten, I think Ryan Day's out of a job. This is a win the Big Ten and beat Michigan or else kind of season. And I do think they'll get one over on Michigan, but they better win the league. And if they're going to win the league, they're going to probably beat Oregon. And they might have to beat them twice. So
they're changing the way the Big 12 championship goes right now. And was
Big
that
10.
this year? Big 10, excuse me?
Yes, there's no more divisions.
Yeah, no one through divisions anymore.
No divisions anymore. So at least in the Power 4 level. So yeah, Ohio State might have to beat Oregon twice, or they might have to beat Penn State or Michigan. I think Michigan takes a bit of a step back this year. They feel like 9-3, 10-2 to me. I don't think Alex Orji can throw, which is a problem.
Yeah.
They'll run the ball like crazy, and it'll be hard to score on them. But that step back offensively for Michigan this year. So this is like a must do it kind of year for Ohio State. They got such a great backfield. They've got stars all over the defensive side. And Will Howard, it was kind of an annoying thing to say, but he was right. He doesn't have to be the hero in Columbus. He can just hand it off and make the plays that Will Howard is capable of making. He doesn't have to find another level. He just has to be Will Howard. And I think that team probably runs the rack in the Big Ten.
Probably.
And then my Big 12 champion, we made those predictions back on Media Day, but I will reiterate, I think Kansas State is winning the Big 12. So those are my 4 byes: Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, and K-State. Brendan, what do you got?
All right, I will go Georgia number 1, but I don't love it. Ohio State 2. I think they are going to end up winning the Big Ten fairly easily. Number 3, I'm going to go with my Big 12 champion. I'm going Utah. If you want to give me K-State, that's fine. I think this conference is going to struggle to get 2 teams into the playoff because I think it's going to cannibalize itself. We'll get to more on that in just a few minutes. But I'm going to go with Utah. They are old, and old does not always mean good, but I think they are both old and good. You get Brant Keithy back healthy, we assume, for this year. Cam Rising, amazingly, has another year of eligibility after this one if he wants it. Doesn't sound like he's going to take it, but I think Cam Rising back is going to help. Veterans in Kyle Whittingham's system win, and they win all the time. I'm going to go with him. And this is going to be the most off-the-wall pick for a college football playoff you are going to hear this year. But the ACC blows. There are 2 good quarterbacks in this conference. 2. That's all I'm going to give you. 2. And one of them is coached by Mario Cristobal. So I am going to take the team with the next best quarterback, Virginia Tech.
I like Kyron Drones a lot.
Drones.
That conference sucks.
It is not a good conference, man.
The college football media was talking up another team with DJ Uiagalelei as like, oh man, watch out, title contender. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm out on DJU after that game in Dublin. Like, I still think Florida State will find a way maybe to double-digit wins, but DJU is unpleasant to watch.
No, okay. I thought he was going to be the perfect fit at Oregon State. Team that wants to run, would be happy to only throw like 15 times a game, quarterback run heavy with Jonathan Smith last year. And you know what he was there? Mediocre. Like, it was the perfect offense made for him, and he was mediocre. I'm going with Tech. And I think they're really well coached. I think Brent Pry's a really good coach.
Spencer, you got 4 conference champions for us.
Yeah. Before I like hearing that as a Virginia Tech guy growing up.
Yeah.
When you grow up in the
Sure.
Virginia area, it's either Virginia or Virginia Tech, and one of them had a great football program and continues to have a great football program.
And the other is Virginia.
The other one has a great basketball program.
Yeah.
The most unpleasant basketball program in the country.
Over the years.
Yes.
My first buy is going to Georgia across the board, all of us. And then Ohio State as well, across the board. This is where I go with Kansas State.
Okay.
As the 3.
And then my ACC champion is Clemson.
Okay. So,
Ugh.
I don't like it either.
I don't like it
Somebody's
either,
got to win the league.
Yeah.
And Dabo's got a pedigree of winning the league. I think
Phil Maffa is good. He's not as good as Will Shipley, but he's good. Like,
he's quite good.
They haven't had a good wide receiver since Justin Ross left.
This is true. But they're gonna pound.
He'll be good though.
They're gonna pound the rock, and they're gonna make it really hard for you to score. All right, for the at-larges, I'm just gonna go in alphabetical order, and I will give you I will give you my 7 at-large teams. I go Alabama. I obviously new coach, but I'm a big Jalen Milroe fan. I think he's gonna win the Heisman. I'll say it. I think Jalen Milroe wins the Heisman. So I think Alabama finds their way to the playoff. I am going to say that there are going to be some off-the-wall teams on this. I'm having to order them alphabetically in my head a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame is going to make the playoff. I think they go a strong 10-2, and it's going to be really hard to leave a brand name like Notre Dame out of the playoff if they're playoff caliber. I think they're going to beat Texas A&M. I know A&M, I think, is favored. But I think
they'll beat A&M.
I think they're going to beat Texas A&M on Saturday.
Too. No, their schedule's really beatable this year. Notre Dame's is. It's a very gettable schedule. I think 10-2 should be the expectation, if not the baseline, honestly.
I'm going to go with Ole Miss to make the playoff and Oregon to make the playoff. I'm going to go with Texas and Tennessee to make the playoff out of the SEC. Tennessee's maybe my dark horse, I guess. They've got a really easy schedule. I think Josh Heupel's a really good offensive coach. Nico Iamaleava is an exciting quarterback prospect. They've got all 11 starters back on defense. I think that's a sneaky good team for Tennessee. And then I will say that the Big 12 gets 2 in. I think Utah gets in. Okay. I think Utah goes 11-1 in the regular season and loses a close, hard-fought conference championship game to K-State. And I think they do get in. And my G5 auto qualifier out of the Mountain West, Boise State. This is a really, really good Boise State team. I think they're going to run the table in the Mountain West. So they're my G5 automatic qualifier.
They are mine too. Let's just start there. Boise State is mine as well. Here's a bold prediction for you. They win a game. They win a game in the playoff.
Ooh.
I think they will. I think that team is really good. They finally found a real coach again.
That probably means they beat either Oregon or Texas.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I don't know that they'll necessarily even get the 12th seed, to be honest with you. I think they're going to be really good this year.
Interesting.
That's my G5 qualifier. I have many of the same teams you do. I'll go alphabetical order too. Alabama. I do think Clemson will get in. So I have Florida State finishing no better than third in that conference. And I don't think they're going to be all that great this year.
I have one ACC team in the playoff. I think that league reeks.
I only picked Clemson because I felt like I had to fit another Power 4 team in there. I'll put K-State. And I think the difference maker is they will finish technically with a worse winning percentage than KU. KU head-to-head and go to the conference championship game against Utah. I think that's the tiebreaker. Notre Dame's going to get in. I think Ole Miss gets in. I think Oregon gets in. And I think Texas gets in.
So yeah, a lot of overlap,
a lot of similarities here. The team that was the two teams that were the next out, honest to God, KU and Mizzou.
Interesting.
Those would be my next two out.
All right, Spencer, your team.
Yeah, we'll start with the G5 qualifier because I do indeed have Boise State as well.
Okay, everybody's riding with the
Should I be
Mountain West.
nervous? I thought that was going to be like, ooh, spicy.
Yeah,
but maybe not.
I thought everybody else would go with an American team, but I think the American's down.
I think so too. I love this Boise State team.
All right, go ahead, Spencer.
All right, I'm going to attempt to go in alphabetical order here.
Do your best.
I just have it written all together. Alabama.
Okay.
Notre Dame.
Okay.
Ole Miss.
Okay.
Oregon.
Ole Miss and Oregon. So, yeah, you've got
a lot of similarities here.
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Okay. Riding with Tennessee.
Texas.
All right.
And Utah.
Oh, so you have the exact same playoff as me.
You have the exact same playoff. I love it. No, great. I love it. All here for it.
The exact same.
To be fair, you all have basically the same playoffs. I think Virginia Tech's like one of the major differences, but like everyone has like the same crop of teams.
It is. Yeah, it's very, very similar. Very similar group of teams. Yeah, none of us
they're all going to be the teams in there. Like,
all right, so you've got KU and Mizzou as your
they're my first two out.
My dark horse teams are going to be. I kind of like Virginia Tech. That's kind of a sneaky pick. Somebody out of the ACC. North Carolina State could be really good, although just North Carolina State seems like Iowa State is fated to win 7 every year.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina State just feels stuck at 8-4, like 8-4 in perpetuity.
Yeah,
for North Carolina State. So it's hard for me to get there with them.
They remain for another year on my do not bet list. Even though they upgraded at quarterback, and I do love Grayson McCall, they remain on my do not bet list.
Like, it's a lot easier for me to look at the teams outside and think of reasons why they won't get in. Like Penn State, Drew Aller, I don't think is good, and James Franklin, I don't think is a big game coach.
I think they're one of the first two out.
Maybe Michigan. If Alex Orji's better than I think, if he can like make the simple throws and takes care of the football, maybe Michigan winds up 11-1 and they beat Ohio State again and they get in the playoff. There's a path for them. I don't know about an SEC dark horse. A&M, I guess, would be the closest I could give you there because I already think a bunch of teams from that league are going to make it. Oklahoma? Am I crazy to think Oklahoma?
I still am not sold on Brent Venables as a head coach. Defensively, yeah, they're going to be great. Even in the SEC, but I'm not sold on him as a head coach. And I'm not sold on Jackson Arnold. Too many question marks.
Yeah.
So those are our playoff predictions. Me and Spencer at the same playoff. We got a difference of where we're seeding.
Does either one of you want to make an adjustment?
No, I like my playoff. I'm riding with it.
I like it too. I've debated on what Tennessee was going to do, but I'll have Tennessee in there anyway. I think they're better than any other team I could have picked.
Brendan's the only one willing to be bold and spicy. Take Virginia Tech to win the ACC.
But that would be bananas.
Yeah.
Admittedly, that would be insane. But I think that league stinks. Someone has to win it, and they will get a top 4 seed because it's the top 4 go to the highest ranked conference champions, and I think they will still finish ahead of Boise State. It might be Boise State.
Yeah.
If we're talking about Virginia Tech winning the ACC, it might be Boise.
Look, this isn't a Frank Beamer Virginia Tech team. They're not going to win.
He's the only guy that's ever really been able to figure it out there. Like, it didn't work for Justin Fuente. Maybe Brett Pry has better luck. We got to take a break, and we got our August semifinals of What Is Wrong With You coming up next. But first, I'll take the first caller who wants some rodeo tickets. 785-272-9429. I got a family 4-pack of Friday night, September 6th tickets to the Professional Bull Riders Outlaw Days at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. If you want them, be the first caller, 785-272-9429, and you get 4 tickets to the rodeo on September 6th at the T-Mobile Center. What is wrong with you next on 580 Sports Talk? What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? It's our August semifinals. So we've got 5 stories that have won their weeks. And we are going to narrow it down to 2 that will play for the August championship on tomorrow's show. Let's get started with the play-in, our 2 short week winners. Our winner this week, the creepy QB coach, the quarterback's coach at Figueroa High School in Texas, who called the cops and told them that a prostitute had stolen $100 from him, which led to some follow-up questions. Notably, what were you doing with a prostitute? And Rolando Ramos was arrested on the charge of soliciting prostitution. He played himself, is what happened there.
Yeah.
That takes on the story I've called Chicken Seasoned with Assault. That was 2 people arrested and charged with assault after insults over unseasoned chicken turned into a brawl involving Raid bug spray, a gun, and a knife, and somebody being called a, quote, dumb dog. By the way, it went from the bug spray to a gun to a knife. It did not escalate in the way you might have imagined.
No.
So that's our play-in game. Guys, who do we like?
I really wanted to go with the creepy QB coach, but called him a dumb dog.
Yeah.
That one just keeps escalating. I'm gonna go with that one.
I'll go with that as
All
well.
right, so Chicken Seasoned with Assault advanced to take on the Stinky Feet shooting 48-year-old David Carpenter of Burlington, Iowa, whose 74-year-old father told him that he had stinky feet, and Mr. Carpenter's response was to pull out a gun and shoot his dad in the face while he was sitting in a motorized scooter. That's the Stinky Feet shooting.
And that one wins.
Yeah,
That's a runaway in that one.
I'm kind of leaning towards that one as well.
Blasting his dad in the dome for telling him to take a bath.
You get stinky feet.
Grow up, you 48-year-old man.
Yeah, you're 48. You got to be able to take criticism a little better than that when you've reached that point in your life. Especially when it's coming from your dad. Your dad's going to tell you, your dad is the one to tell you some hard truths about life. And if one of those is your feet stink, then wash your feet, man. Rub some soap on those soles. Anyway, so the Stinky Feet shooting is one of our semifinalists, or finalists, I should say. The other semifinal, the bag of drugs. 41-year-old Lauren Riley, who was pulled over and had a bunch of drugs in a bag that said bag of drugs. There's a whole bunch of drug paraphernalia, crack cocaine, powdered cocaine, crystal meth, Xanax pills, all kinds of drugs in this woman's bag of drugs, which was helpfully for police labeled bag of drugs. That takes on the story we've dubbed the Mercury Gambit. Russian chess player Amina Abakarova, who poisoned her opponent with mercury, dipped her chess pieces into liquid mercury, and poisoned her opponent in full view of security cameras.
In Russia.
I
probably would not have done that in Russia, of all places. I'm going to go with the Mercury Gambit, to be honest. But we have a texter from the 785 on the Top City Metal Supply text line who says, come on, it's the bag of drugs. This woman said, hey, those cameras don't work, right?
Yeah, she did. She actually asked beforehand, hey, those cameras, they're not working. They're not up, are they? And she was told, yeah, no, they're not.
Which is the
perfect
ultimate tip-off to the other people that, something is about to happen.
Perfect. I'm going to poison my opponent with mercury. What kind of 1800s ass crime is that?
Yeah, that's my winner for this semifinal.
So that'll be our final tomorrow, the Stinky Feet shooting and the Mercury Gambit on our August final of What Is Wrong With You. Coming up next, Paul Myerberg of USA Today joins us for the Big 12 football breakdown. It's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
When Keller Fire and Safety does routine inspections, the 2 most common
Back in on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Dan, Brendan, and Spencer with you. It is time now to be joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by our great friend Paul Myerberg from USA Today for our first Big 12 breakdown of the season. Paul, it is so good to hear your voice because it means college football is back.
Yeah, that's right. When we talk, good things happen, win or lose, because it means we're about to play some football. It's been a long time. I will say this offseason flew by. They always seem to fly by. They always seem to get a lot quicker and shorter. And the good news, the best news, guys, is that this is going to be the longest football season of all time. We go all the way to January 20th. So buckle up. Starts tonight. We got about, let me do the math here, 4 months, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. And it really does start in earnest tonight. Before we get to the games themselves, Paul, are you used to doing things like referring to Ohio State and Oregon as a conference game or referring to Cal as a member of the ACC? Are you used to all of that yet? Have you acclimated to all of the changes that have come to the conference alignment in college football this year?
Oh God, no. Like, it's embarrassing because it's my job. I have to go to ESPN.com/college football/standings on a regular basis. Like, how many teams does so-and-so have? Like, who's in Conference USA now? Like, it's really difficult. And I'll tell you the thing that I am messing up more than anything else. I cannot stop saying Power 5. Okay?
Yeah.
It's Power 4 now. But my brain just doesn't want to do that. So just forewarning, like, I'll say Power 5 all season long. But it's hard. It's difficult to keep track nowadays. That's a good thing and a bad thing. It's bad because it's harder for us to get a grasp maybe on certain teams. But I think the uncertainty and the unsettled nature of this season by virtue of the playoff, by different conferences, by the lack of the Pac-12, by, all the player movement, I think it's really fun and really interesting, even if you can't really wrap your head around how this year's actually going to play out.
Paul, we mourn the loss of the Pac-12 as well, so you'll probably get a Power 5 or 2 from us, so don't feel too bad as we talk to you throughout the season. Paul Myerberg of USA Today joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Big 12 breakdown. All right, Paul, let's start with the in-state teams because this is as anticipated a season as maybe there has ever been for both Kansas and Kansas State at the same time. And we'll start with the Jayhawks because they start their season tonight taking on Lindenwood at Children's Mercy Park in Kansas City, Kansas. They're 1 year hiatus away from their home in Lawrence. If Jalen Daniels plays the vast majority, maybe even all 12 regular season games this year for the Jayhawks, what do you see as this team's ceiling?
Oh, I think this team's ceiling, let's say he's healthy and you don't have to dip into your backup. This is a 9-win team. I really believe that. And this is a 9-win team, not just because non-conference play is not necessarily easy. It will be tonight, but I think Illinois is going to be a physical test. I think UNLV, not quite as much, but UNLV, we know from last year, this is not a terrible football team. But you miss Oklahoma State, you miss Utah. You do go to Kansas State, but look, you got Baylor and Arizona State on the road. That's really helps your overall strength of schedule in terms of getting winnable games away from home. It's funny, like when we started doing the show together, obviously we said this a lot, KU was a punchline. I think maybe 3 years ago we started talking about, hey, let's get to 6. Last year I thought it was 7 or 8. I think this is a 9-win team, guys. I think there's a lot of talent. I think there's tremendous experience. There's tremendous optimism and confidence in what they're doing. So, yeah, the standard continues to change. I don't think they're going to win the league, but you got to like what you see from this team. And yes, I will say 9 wins as of today should be not the baseline, but it should be a very achievable benchmark for KU in 2024.
Over in Manhattan, there's lots of excitement for this year's Kansas State Wildcats, a team that I am having trouble containing my excitement in particular about what their offense could be with a full season of sophomore Avery Johnson at quarterback. What do you see as achievable for these Wildcats? Are you all in on Avery Johnson's impact as a sophomore?
Yeah, I am totally all in. I think that there's an absolute decline in terms of your ability to rely on, or at least know what you're going to get. Will Howard, at the very minimum, you knew what you were going to get on a weekly basis, and he pretty much hit that benchmark every single week. But the ceiling for Avery Johnson that's what people don't know, and I think that's what makes him so exciting as a player. So I'm fully on board with Kansas State. You cannot go wrong between K-State and Utah. If you are picking Utah to win this conference, as most people did by a very small amount, that's fine. I mean, Utah has earned the benefit of the doubt. They're a tremendous program. They've been a tremendous program going back for a decade plus. But Kansas State, I mean, this team is built to win it, guys. I think this is a team that's built to be number 4 in the playoff rankings. It's built to have the kind of season that they've been hoping for a very long time. Again, less so than KU, but I do think if they stay healthy, and Johnson he's not going to be a Heisman winner, but if he is an all-conference guy, which I think he obviously has the dual threat ability to do that, if he's playing at that level, then I don't even want to put a number on this team. I'm not saying they're going to run the table, but this is a heck of a good team. And I think if you're excited about Kansas State right now, that excitement is very, very, very well justified.
Brendan, Dan, and Spencer joined here by Paul Myerberg of USA Today, national college football writer, joining us for this year's first edition of the Big 12 Breakdown via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. I do want to add really quickly, Paul, when we did first start doing this segment several years ago now, and KU was a punchline to where we are today, my mental health is so much better going into this segment because it's not, wow, this team sucks, why are we even talking about them? The fact that KU is actually good makes me feel so much better. Now, as for this top tier of the Big 12, you had KU at 9, K-State a legitimate contender to win the Big 12. Who would you put in that top group, the top quarter of the conference, the 3, 4, maybe even 5 teams who you would say have the most legitimate chances to win this Big 12 title this year in the first year of the re-expanded Big 12?
Yeah, well, let's just say this real quick. I think this is going to be such a fun league with tremendous storylines. It's not going to match the SEC or the Big Ten in terms of national attention, but if you're a Big 12 person, I love the makeup of this league, and I love the fact that, we want to get a top quarter. I think there's 6 or 7 teams that you can say right now, either you feel really good about their chances, or at least you think that they have a chance that you can't overlook it.
Yeah.
Utah and Kansas State, I think, are established as 1, 2. I have Kansas and probably UCF right behind those 2. And then an Iowa State and an Oklahoma State, and maybe Arizona. I think Arizona is an interesting team, guys, because you love the personnel, especially on offense. They've got the QB, this kid McMillan at wide receiver. I think people are going to love because he's an All-America guy. But there's a coaching change. I think there's a little bit of uncertainty from my perspective about Arizona. But by and large, those are 6 teams in my mind that you could see in the playoff. And that's pretty wild. I mean, you can say the same for the SEC and Big Ten. But I think these 6 and maybe 7 teams in the Big 12 is going to make a really great top half race that'll really heat up, I think, in October, November.
So Dan all in on Arizona this year with McMillan and Fafita, and I like Brent Brennan as well. I think Iowa State is going to be really good, and I think has kind of flown under the radar because they bring back darn near everybody from last year, and I really like Rocco Beck. But putting UCF in that top 4 group on a similar plane with KU, what do you like about Gus Malzahn's Knights going into this year?
Yeah, so I will say this, all summer long, all spring long, I was not really tuned into UCF. I always kind of had the impression when they joined the Big 12 that this could be a team that when they got their feet under them could win this conference, could get into a playoff game. But as I started talking to people in the last couple of weeks to get an idea about, hey, give me 3 or 4 sleepers, talking to coaches, not just in the Big 12, but people who will play Big 12 teams, UCF has been a team that a lot of people are discussing as way underrated. And I think in the preseason poll, they might have been somewhere 7, 8, 9. I've gotten the impression from people in the know that this is a team that could be really, really, really dangerous. Speed to burn, an offense that in KJ Jefferson, I think that people are really excited about his ability to run that scheme, especially with him and Malzahn together. So I think there's a lot to like. I will say, just to back it up, I thought UCF could be successful from the jump in the Big 12. They really haven't hit it. So I think there's a degree of skepticism from my part. But the trend is up. I think there's a lot of optimism and a lot of good vibes around UCF and their ability to get into the top 3 or 4 teams in this league. But again, they could be 5th or 6th in this league and still win 8 or 9 games. Because I do think those top 6 or 7 teams could really, especially when you consider where teams 11 through 16 stand, which is pretty crappy. I think you could see 5 or 6 teams get to 9 wins, or maybe even more when you look at the top half of this conference.
Oklahoma State is a team that has just fascinated me over the course of this offseason. And I've asked a similar question to this to every single college football person we have talked to for months now, Paul. But every time you count out Mike Gundy, and admittedly, I have years and years and years in a row, they somehow come out looking way better than I expect them to. Ollie Gordon is one of the best players in the country. Alan Bowman has replaced, I think, Sean Clifford as America's number one, is he good or old quarterback. What do you think the ceiling is for this Oklahoma State team, and where do you think is the most likely place that they finish in the Big 12?
Yeah, isn't it wild that, like, it wasn't that long ago that they were losing to South Alabama, and he was playing his son at quarterback, and you were like, oh, my God, like, this is it for Mike Gundy. Like, they were a fascinating team when they were hitting skids. A couple months later or a couple games later, like, yeah, this is a team that has really put that in their rear view. I'm not quite the Alan Bowman guy. Like, it's a great comparison to Sean Clifford, right? Because Sean Clifford, even now looking back, the dude went to Rose Bowls and played in big games, but you still can't get two people in a room to say that he was a good college quarterback. Bowman is serviceably good. And I think that's good for Oklahoma State when you have an Ollie Gordon and you have guys at the edge who can get to the quarterback. I think they're still a little bit too one-dimensional. And I think there are teams in this league that are way more explosive on offense and that are just about good enough on defense that Oklahoma State might not be able to keep pace. Again, can't count out Gundy. Like, if this is like last year, that start was their low point, then obviously this is a team that could get to 8, 9, 10 wins again. I just don't see the total package that maybe some others are seeing. They'll be good. I would not bet on them being great as of right now.
Paul Myerberg of USA Today is our guest, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for this round of the Big 12 breakdown. All right, Paul, with the season getting underway in earnest tonight and through this Labor Day weekend, time to make some predictions. We've already made our predictions on the show earlier today, but want to hear from you first. Your top 4 seeds for the college football playoff, essentially your conference champions in what is now the Power 4. Who you got?
Okay, so my top 4 are going to be Georgia as the SEC rep, Ohio State coming out of the Big Ten. I hate that I'm saying this. I think it's going to be Clemson in the ACC, though that gives me so much agita. And I'm going with Kansas State. Those are my top 4 when I did my pick. I think those are your 4 conference champs. Your 5th one will probably be Memphis because the Americans got that really good reputation. And when you look at the Big 12, the question is, will there be a second team? I think you're going to have a possibility. If it's K-State, Utah, I think it's a really good chance you get 2 teams in. So that's kind of the underlying storyline for the Big 12 is you obviously get your conference champion. Will you get a second? I think it's definitely possible.
Give me your dark horse team to make the playoff that nobody's talking about or not enough people are talking about that you really believe has a great chance to make that 12-team field.
Yeah, this is a good one. So this is my sleeper team of the year. And it's not, they're not coming out of nowhere, but NC State in the ACC. NC State has been knocking on the door of 10 wins for like 3 or 4 years in a row. They have only won 10 games in the season once in program history, which is absolutely shocking. I think the ACC is open for business. NC State is very underrated defensively. I think they're good enough on offense that they're going to be able to offset the fact that Miami probably will be really good with Cam Ward. Clemson will be better on offense. Florida State, last week notwithstanding, obviously is someone dangerous. I think NC State is the team to watch. If I was not going to pick Clemson, I would definitely have NC State as the ACC team.
Who wins the Heisman?
I think it's going to be Quinn Ewers, guys. I do. I think there's a lot of power to be had, obviously, to be a quarterback at UT. I do think they're going to be as good as people hope they're going to be, or at least their fans hope they're going to be in the SEC. I think his numbers are going to be better. If you look back at last year, they were good. Obviously, he missed a couple games, but they weren't quite Heisman numbers. With the attention that team's going to get, the road they have to get through in the SEC, and the fact that he's going to put up some big numbers, I do think it'll be Ewers. Carson Beck also, obviously, but I think Beck is going to be discounted for the fact that people look at his team and think, as good as he is, there's too much help around him. So I would give the edge to Ewers at this point.
Last 2 questions for you, Paul. First, which game this weekend? And we're excited, honestly, for all of them. Like, I am jacked for everything from UTEP, Nebraska on up. I love the first week of college football. But if there's one game for you that you are the most excited, most intrigued by, which is it?
Yeah, so I am going to say Clemson, Georgia. I know that it's obviously the number one game because of the numbers next to the names. But I think Clemson, Georgia is telling. A couple of years ago when Georgia won 10-3, it was telling because you could see that Clemson was in a state of disrepair. 2 years into the Garrett Riley thing or a second year into it, I do think they're going to be a lot better on offense. They're probably not good enough to beat Georgia. It's just a statement game. So Georgia minus 13.5 right now. I think Clemson can hang a little bit tighter than that, but that's the game for me of the weekend. Unless you want to talk about like Lamar and Charlotte, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
But no, that's the one.
We do have, of course, a garbage dumpster game of the week from Brendan Wierzinski.
Yeah, so there are a few, and I nearly went here, Paul, with SEMO versus New Mexico State. New Mexico did end up losing to their FCS team. We'll see about New Mexico State, but I'm actually going to go from our dumpster juice pick to just a potential dumpster fire game. If Colorado loses tonight to North Dakota State, I'm not sure Deion's going to be let back in his own house in Boulder when it's all said and done. Colorado is favored by 10.5 over the Bison. Do you think that Colorado can get it done, or are the 6-time FCS national champs going to pull the upset?
Yeah, so I saw 10.5 the other day, and it made my jaw drop because they're playing the Bison. Like, you're playing the greatest dynasty in FCS history. And I know that they've got a coaching change, and that's not quite what it used to be. I was really shocked by that. If they lose to to North Dakota State, I think the one thing they got to make sure they do is the Denver Post columnist cannot be in that post-game interview room. That's like the most important thing that Colorado could do. Look, like, all it would do from my perspective is just prove what we already kind of know and that most people believe, but most people don't want to say, is that Deion really doesn't know what he's doing. He has an idea about what it would look like if it worked, but if you just take his name out of it and say Coach Jay Jones is bringing 50 transfers a year, he's cutting guys left and right, he's giving his, he's hiring assistant coaches with no experience, he's losing special teams coordinators in August, you would say, wow, this is a disgraceful disaster. So if they lose on Saturday, or tonight rather, we'll just know already that this is a disaster. I kind of feel like it's heading that way anyway.
Paul Myerberg covers college football nationally for USA Today and joins us weekly every Thursday for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Paul, again, it's great to hear your voice because it means college football is back. Thanks for your time, and we'll do it again next Thursday.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Talk to you next week.
That's Paul Myerberg. Brendan and I are out of here. Brendan for Ichabod Football. I'm going to the KU game. Spencer's got you the rest of the way from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk.
Welcome back to this edition of 580 Sports Talk here from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios on 580 WIBW here in Topeka. Spencer here with you solo, the youngest in charge movement, Brendan and Trenton. They left to go to Emporia for the Turnpike Tussle as Washburn gets ready to take on Emporia tonight. You can hear that on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. And Dan left us to get out to KCK. Probably wouldn't have left us as early if KU wasn't playing or was playing at their normal at the booth. But unfortunately, he's got to go all the way out to KCK to the Legends to get out to Children's Mercy Park tonight for their first matchup against FCS Lindenwood. Follow along with that on Twitter. Let's hear. We've got just under a minute left here in this hour. My on second thought for the week was I mean, we don't have an official move yet for Samaje Perine, who the corresponding move is, and Brett Veach will play some audio later in headlines. He didn't give a corresponding move, but I thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was done. We've seen enough from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he is not worthy of being on a championship team, in my opinion. And I thought, but he did make the final cut. We'll see. I have not seen a corresponding move yet, so we'll see what happens there. But my on second thought is Clyde Edwards-Helaire still on the team. We'll have more next hour, headlines and more from the Drive Zero studios coming up next hour. Welcome to the final hour of 580 Sports Talk for this Thursday, August 29th. Youngest in charge, moving here for the final hour. Spencer Dupuis hanging out with you. Dan Lucero is en route to Children's Mercy Park in Kansas City, Kansas, as the Kansas Jayhawks open the football season tonight at 7 p.m. against the FCS Lindenwood. As he'll be on site, you can see his tweets follow along on Twitter. I believe he might even have a post-game recap on. I'll have a post-game recap on the site. He might have an instant reaction. I'm not too sure if that'll actually text. We'll figure it out by the end of the show. And Brendan Dorzinski, along with our former intern, now Washburn sideline reporter Trenton Craxner, they're en route along with Fletcher Terrell down to Emporia for the Turnpike Tussle. I believe that game's at 7 p.m. as well. And I think a 6:30 airtime. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe I heard 6:30 airtime on Classic Country 106.9, our sister station, your home of Washburn athletics. And that is why I'm here alone tonight. But yeah, final hour. It's the youngest in charge movement, Spencer Takeover Hour. As former 580 Sports Talk board operator and producer Britt Zweigert told me earlier, he said it's 580 Spencer Talk for the final hour. So I know you guys don't want to hear about my life the whole hour. We'll talk sports. We'll actually play some Brett Veach cuts. He spoke to the media for nearly 25 minutes today. Do not have enough time to air all of that, but I've got some choice cuts, some that go a little bit, minute and a half, some in-depth answers to some big questions, some burning questions that people wanted to ask, that the media wanted to ask the GM of the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Chiefs as they made their initial cut down to 53 men 2 days ago now. 2 days. Oh, it's been 2 days, and they started building their practice squad. I'm going to check again to see if we do have a corresponding move. I don't think we have a corresponding move yet for Samaje Perine. They might sign him to the practice squad and they'll elevate him next week and figure out what they're going to do there. A lot of teams are doing that. The Cowboys are actually doing that with Dalvin Cook, as we reported to you before. But let's just get into some NFL headlines, and then we'll play the Veach audio here. KU alum Dominic Pooney, he's all but named starting right guard for the 49ers in press availability yesterday by Kyle Shanahan. And here is the cut from Kyle. It's a media member asking Kyle Shanahan this. This is from KNBR in San Francisco. So that was the voice you heard there was the media member and Kyle Shanahan, all but confirming that former KU football star Dominic Pooney is going to start at right guard for the 49ers this season. That's huge news. We've been kind of hearing that all camp long, that he was the leader there for the 49ers at that right guard spot, but now it's all but official, just hasn't really told everybody on the back end. The media kind of got to it there. Some trade news yesterday, late after the show ended. The Chargers have acquired quarterback Taylor Heineke from the Falcons. Obviously, Taylor Heineke was kind of on the outs there in Atlanta because of the drafting, obviously bringing Kirk Cousins in the offseason and drafting Michael Penix. So they now only have two quarterbacks. It's Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, and Kirk Cousins coming off the Achilles injury. You might have to go to your rookie quarterback if something happens with Kirk Cousins this year. But we have the trade as Taylor Heineke, the journeyman quarterback, continues his journey as he will move to the Los Angeles Chargers, as he will slot in the backup quarterback because the third string quarterback now is Easton Stick. So you got somebody that has some legit starting activity, he's been there, he's done that. If Justin Herbert gets hurt again, or if he can't play in that opening game, because obviously he's had that ankle injury. I think he's cleared to go, and I think he will go, but solid backup at Taylor Heineke going out to LA to the Chargers. Next headline here, it's former NFL coaching news, I guess, but it's more media news in that former NFL head coach, former Patriots head coach, legendary Patriots head coach Bill Belichick. He's all over the place media-wise. He's going to be on Let's Go podcast with Tom Brady, I believe. He's doing a lot other stuff, but he's really inked a great deal with ESPN where he's going to be all over ESPN and their platforms during the NFL season. He's discussing football at the PhD level, according to the release from ESPN. His full slate includes all 11 episodes of the Manning Cast, the Pat McAfee Show every Monday, and an ESPN Plus series with Peyton Manning. So that'll be cool to see Bill Belichick with, arguably the second best quarterback during the era that he coached in Peyton Manning, and it's a quarterback that his Patriots beat a lot and beat in big situations to get to the Super Bowl. So that'll be a fun series on ESPN Plus. We know Peyton has a bunch of series and Omaha Productions with the Manning Cast and everything that the collaboration between Omaha Productions and ESPN is able to do. So I'm intrigued about this series with Peyton Manning and what it can do. What we can hear Bill Belichick more, because he started to open up when he's been on Pat McAfee. I know a lot of people probably aren't Pat McAfee listeners, but I like to see the interviews with people. I won't probably watch a full-length show of the Pat McAfee Show, but I will go on when I know somebody's on just to see how they interview. And I'm interested to see the media side of Bill Belichick, because it's more than we're on to Cincinnati. And I love it. I love that he's opening up. Let's get into the other two headlines before we hit the Brett Veach audio, because it'll take the remainder of the segment. The SEC will do availability reports. This coming from Brett McMurphy. The SEC goes with more NFL-like availability reports. SEC schools must submit availability reports 3 days prior to each conference football game beginning Wednesday for a Saturday game, with daily updates leading to the final report that comes out 90 minutes before kickoff. Schools violating the policy will be fined $25,000 for a first offense to $100,000 for a third and further offenses. Player designations will be designated as available, probable, questionable, doubtful, or out for their next game. To provide further clarity on game day, they will be designated as available, game time decision, or out for the upcoming game. So you're not necessarily going to know this 90-minute report coming out. It could say game time decision. We still won't know if that player will play in the SEC in a conference game based upon what is coming out right now. So that's something to keep an eye out for. This game time decision, what stops schools from just saying players that are full go are game time decisions? So who knows? And the final one here, some NBA news on the hardwood. This comes from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. The Golden State Warriors and star Stephen Curry have agreed to on a 1-year, $62.6 million extension. They'll keep him under contract through the 2026-2027 per his agent, Jeff Austin of Octagon. He told ESPN Curry is guaranteed $178 million over the next 3 seasons of his Warrior deal. The extension will be signed, might have been signed by now. This was at 11:30 this morning Central. So that, obviously, he's one of the greatest shooters of all time, as we know. So he's going to stick around he will stick around there in Golden State in the San Francisco Bay Area until at least 2026, 2027. He'll probably finish his career with the Warriors because he's the legend there. Let's get to some Brett Veach audio. He spoke to the media at length, 25 minutes. The first cut here that I have will be Brett Veach speaking on what went wrong with Kadarius Toney and why they decided to move on. They'll have to pay him, if he doesn't get signed, over $2.5 million this season.
We're certainly disappointed. I think he's disappointed. I think when you look back on it, some of the stuff is a stroke of bad luck in regards to some of the injuries you can't control. Like walking out the first day of training camp last year and tearing his MCL. I mean, that was something that was just unfortunate. And some of the things I think that we talked about was sometimes you can make some bad luck turn into good luck by just doing some little things in the offseason, take care of your body. And I think that's a process he's working through. And again, it's certainly not for lack of talent. And that's a situation where I think when you move on from players like that, I think everyone feels disappointed. But as far as our relationship with the kid, I really like the kid, and I don't think that he's certainly we've seen the end of him, and I think he'll have a chance. And I think if he's able to tighten up some of the offseason stuff and get his body right, I think he'll go out there and make a ton of plays for another team.
So it didn't work here in Kansas City for Kadarius Toney. Still, he's got a chance somewhere else. You never know what happens. And Brett Veach points to the offseason dieting, I guess, or just the way that he kept care of his body during the offseason as to a reason why he was cut. Let's hear what Veach talked about today when he was asked about improving the roster when they cut to 53 men.
Well, I think we were able to address some glaring needs, and again, the fifth defensive end and the third down running back position. I think it's similar when you get to this point of the season with every GM. I think there's always something else you can do. So I think getting through OTAs and getting through training camp, working with the coaching staff and the personnel staff, I think we feel good, but I think there's always room for improvement. And I think we have some unproven pieces at the corner position, but I do think we have some talent there, and some guys have played in the past. So again, I think there's always room to get better, and I think we wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't continually combing through the waiver wire and the transactions.
And that's what good teams do. Good teams look to improve no matter what, but there's not going to be a lot of improvement. But they did. They made a trade at the defensive end position where they're lacking, as Charles Omenihu is coming back from the injury that maybe he'll get back halfway through the season. Who really knows? And then obviously you get a tight end that plays special teams. That's the big thing. Irv Smith Jr. really didn't play special teams. He was more of a offensive first tight end, but now you've got a guy in your trade with the Cowboys that does that stuff. And then they picked up a waiver wire corner from the Cowboys as well. So, that depth, obviously we know there was no true second guy right behind, second guy to be the starter opposite, your number one corner. So they didn't really have a number two corner. It's going to be kind of by committee this year, obviously. And that's something that you're not used to the Chiefs doing, just because of how good they are over time and, how good they've been and where they, back-to-back Super Bowl champions. So it's just, Brett Veach is such a good GM that he's going to be able to tinker little things. And obviously last year, the offense wasn't great. It was the defense that carried him through the season. And when you can do that, and now you can, now it's your offense that you're really building. Now, obviously, one guy they're going to be without probably for the first couple of weeks is Hollywood Brown, and Veach talked about Hollywood Brown's status earlier today. Well,
I would, I don't like talking about medical, because if I say something and he's ahead of that timeline or behind that timeline, then, I don't want to put any more pressure on the kid. I would say that, and I'm sure it's been reported, I can probably confidently say it was similar to Tyreek, and I think given that timeline, I think it falls in line with the timeline that Tyreek went through. But I know he's here every day, and he's to the point now where he can laugh without pain. So that's a good thing. So he's certainly trending in the right direction. And look, there was a reason why we didn't put him on the IR to start the season. So I think within that window, I defer to Rick, but I feel like he's probably on that trajectory Tyreek was on.
And that's good to hear, because obviously Tyreek didn't miss that very long, but it wasn't needed. An IR stint wasn't needed, because if you put him on a short-term IR, that's, I believe, 6 weeks. So they don't believe he's going to be out 6 weeks. A guy that came in this year thought, there's a lot of unknowns. There's the intrigue. We talked about it yesterday on the show, the intrigue that this player brought. That was former Welsh rugby star Louis Rees-Zammit. And he didn't make the 53. He is one of those guys that if he can become an NFL player, Swiss Army knife player, he could be, one of those guys that can do it all. Obviously, we saw, he's a Welsh rugby star, so he's the tough guy, clearly, right? Like, to play rugby, you have to be tough. So he's a tough guy. He's just not used to what the NFL game is. And he could be a Taysom Hill, maybe. Not necessarily the quarterback part, but maybe the running back, receiver, guy that could be a kick returner, special teams, obviously a kicker, and that's something that could be intriguing down the line. but he's no longer with the Chiefs. They didn't sign him to the practice squad, but was there even an opening for him to come back? Was there an invite for him to come to the practice squad? Why did he choose Jacksonville? What is Brett Veach's take on why he chose to sign with the Jacksonville practice squad?
We kept it open. We wanted the kid to really, look at maybe some different opportunities as well. Pretty remarkable when you think about a player that doesn't have any pro American football experience, no middle school, no high school, no big time college experience. We were kind of thinking about it going through camp. Imagine not having any sort of foundational background, just to be thrown in and be doing one-on-one pass pros with a Drew Tranquil or Nick Bolton. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I think for him, it'll be just finding out that exact position, running back, maybe a big slot receiver. I think he does have some potential as a returner. I'm not so sure he couldn't be a kicker. I mean, he had an outstanding leg, and with this new role, he can do some different things, provide some versatility. I think the Jacksonville thing and their relationship overseas and what that brings to the table, going overseas twice a year, I think that was probably something that interests him. But phenomenal kid, phenomenal worker, and again, just thinking back on the tremendous amount of progress he made in a short amount of time, I think he'll continue to grow and develop, and I think he found a really good spot there in Jacksonville.
So the overseas ability for Luis Rezamet could have been a big opportunity for him, and Brett Veach even points that out. We pointed that out yesterday on the show, and I guess the last 2 days on the show. And maybe he is, when they go overseas, maybe he is the roster of the guy that gets elevated to the 53-man or to the game day roster for both games. That would be a cool thing to do, right? Play overseas, get some of your family to come to the games, some of your friends, maybe even your teammates from your rugby days. Obviously that is something that could happen down the line, but it's just, Dan and I talked about this off air earlier. It's a championship team, and this guy is new to the game of football. It was the intrigue, honestly. Like, I was intrigued by him. I thought this could be a cool thing, but he's just not really picking it up enough, and he's got a better opportunity in Jacksonville maybe to play overseas. Next cut here, just a few more left. He talks about the offensive line depth. Obviously, the Chiefs kept some guys on the offensive line that maybe you weren't expecting. Obviously, you have 3 young guys on this roster. Actually, 4 if you count Kingsley Suamataia. But Suamataia is starting. So then, he's part of your starting 5. But then of your reserves, you have 5 guys, and 3 of them are straight up rookies. And 1 guy's an undrafted rookie. And that's my guy, Ethan Driscoll out of Marshall. He'll talk about him, but he also talks about the 2 other rookies, CJ Hansen and Hunter Norzad, in this cut.
And we talk about this every year. I think the versatility stands out. Hunter Norzad is a guy that obviously maybe best suited to play center, but I think he gives you guard flex. I think Hansen needs some time, but I think, he's probably more suited to play center as well. I do think that he's got a lot of room to grow. He's super athletic. I think he just needs to get a little bit bigger and stronger, but I think he has guard, center, flex. And then Driscoll is just one of those type of players that has rare physical traits. He's a big guy. He's athletic. Again, like Hansen, there'll be some anchoring issues and there'll be some weight issues early on. But he was a guy that I think it was rough the first preseason game, and then it got a little bit better, and then it got a little bit better, and then you can see him grow and get more confidence at practice. And, one of the hard parts of it is, you see that there's certainly another team saying that. And then we bring a player in here and we work with him, we develop him, we go through the rough patches, and then all of a sudden to have him break free on the waiver wire, someone's getting a young player under a rookie contract with a ton of work that we put into it. And so I think there's always that desire to see it through the end. And again, Coach Heck has done this with many players over the years.
Contrasting words there from Chiefs GM Brett Veach. What he said, I mean, yeah, you've got guys that played major college football, but he didn't seem to think about that for Luis Rezamet. What if he becomes a star for the Jaguars out of nowhere, right? Like that would stink in their minds, right? One more cut here before we hit the first break of the final hour of the show today. He talked about roster construction, but specifically on defense and why the trade that they made was key, and the guys that they have on the practice squad as well when it comes to the numbers, defensive line, defensive backs specific.
Yeah, no, I listen, I think that the corner position and I think the defensive line position, I think it's one of those things where we're going to continue to look at and monitor. That caused the urgency, I think, to get Cam, again, just as a defensive end, but on the defensive line in particular, we did have some numbers that were close. We felt like we'd have a good chance to get some of these guys on the practice squad to use the elevations. And there's a little of us buying some time to get, Omenahu is going to be the big piece for us down the stretch. And so I think when we find a guy that we feel adds a little bit, maybe more upfield rush in that group, I think Turk Wharton's had a great camp. He's way ahead of where he was last year coming off that knee injury. So you have Chris, you have Turk Wharton, who had a great camp. I think we have an experienced player in Derek. That third position or that fourth position with Derek, Mike Pinnell, the end of the season he had last year and that Super Bowl he had last year, he continues to defy odds because he is an older guy, but he continues to bring juice to that room. So I think if you had a guy that you can supplement in there that has some upfield rush in that, might be a smaller guy, weren't able to find that in the waiver wire. We'll continue to do that, but we also know that as this goes on here, we're going to get Charles back, and he's kind of the last missing piece of that defensive line for us.
So they're really, really waiting for Charles Omenihu to return from injury. Obviously, he had that knee injury. Probably, halfway through the season or so, you could expect Omenihu to come back, but obviously the Chiefs are going to tinker with their roster before the start. We are literally just a week and literally less than 2 hours away. A week and an hour and 50 minutes, 40 or 52 minutes away from the start of the season. 7:20 next Thursday at GHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium against the Baltimore Ravens, the AFC Championship rematch. You can watch that on NBC. Also hear it on our airwaves with voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. That'll do it for our headline segment of 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the games tonight going on college football wise, and I believe there's some that have already started, so we might get you some score updates from some games. But that's next on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. Welcome back to this edition of 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. It's the youngest in charge movement. Spencer Dupuis hanging out with you for the last, I guess you could say hour, because we do have an edition of 580 Sports Talk Overtime coming up, where we'll actually not play back today's interview. We'll play back Tuesday's interview for Michael Swain of Fog.net and 24/7 Sports to get you ready for the Jayhawks home opener tonight. I guess home opener at Children's Mercy Park in KCK against the against FCS Lindenwood. We'll have that just after the top of the hour on 580 WIBW 104.9 FM to get you set for Royals baseball. That's coming up in just under an hour at 6:30. We'll preview that matchup in the next segment. Let's take a look at some college football games going on tonight. There's actually one game underway right now. I did see this on Twitter. You have Howard and Rutgers. At Rutgers, it's 7-0 Rutgers right now. But that's the only college football game currently going on. Again, that's East Coast time, so it was a 6 o'clock kick, 6:05 kickoff. But looking at games tonight, KU favored by 49 in this one. Total is at 62.5. There's, I believe somebody in the YouTube comments earlier was looking for the spread on this one, saying Vegas didn't put anything on it. I believe somebody in the YouTube comments said that, but it is in fact a 49.5 or 49 now. Excuse 49. It was 62.5 total there for KU. Coming in as the 27th or 22nd ranked team. Again, you can watch that on ESPN Plus coming up at 7 p.m. from Children's Mercy Park. Stay tuned to our Twitter and WIBW.com as Dan Lucero's en route to KCK to cover that one. And there might be an instant reaction coming up on our YouTube later on tonight. But let's look at some other Thursday night openers going on. I guess the main one that people in Big 12 country are thinking about is the number 12 ranked Utah Utes. They are at home taking on Southern Utah. That game also an ESPN Plus game. That's 8 p.m. They are favored by 40 in this one with a 50 with a total of 55.5. Yeah, clearly it's going to be, you're talking about two FCS opponents. So, and I guess one that maybe people in this area, it'll actually be on terrestrial TV. I mean, you have to obviously have to pay to get this package, but the SEC network tonight, 7 p.m., number 11 Mizzou taking on Murray State from Columbia, Missouri. That one has a 50. Mizzou's favored by 50 in this one. And let's take a look at the other top 25 game going on tonight. Number 24, NC State taking on Western Carolina. That also on terrestrial TV, the ACC network. That's set to kick off at 6:32 to be exact. That's what it has on there as well. So that one, NC State favored by 32 with a total at 61.5. I'll make my picks for these top 25 games, and we've got some time, so I'll take a look at all of the FBS games going on tonight around FBS. They're going to be playing SCS teams, but I'll take NC State. Obviously, I'll take the home teams in all of this one. I don't think in this top 25 matchups, I don't think any of these top 25 teams are losing at home. Clear as day. So that'd be NC State, number 24, over Western Carolina, already favored by 32. That'd be number 11, Mizzou, over Murray State. Mizzou favored by 50. Kansas, the 22nd ranked team, over FCS Lindenwood. KU at 49. And then Utah, the 12th ranked team, I'll take them over Southern Utah. That's a 40, favored by 40 in this one. There's a game tomorrow night. We'll probably talk about that tomorrow. It's Oklahoma, 16th ranked team, taking on Temple. That's 6 p.m. ESPN. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But let's talk about FBS 1A games going on tonight. Who else is? Let's see. Wake Forest out of the ACC taking on North Carolina A&T. Wake Forest favored by 33. Taking Wake all day here. UCF and New Hampshire. UCF favored by 38.5. Give me UCF. Game 6 p.m. ESPN Plus. So you can watch all your Big 12 teams on Big 12 now on ESPN Plus. So they'll give you all those. Jackson State at UL Monroe. ULM's only favored by 5.5 in this one. This will be interesting to see what Jackson State can do. That might be an upset watch for an FCS team taking on an FBS team. I'd have to tune into that. Also at 6 p.m., Buffalo taking on Lafayette. That game, ESPN Plus from Buffalo, New York. Buffalo only favored by 3.5 in this one. That's an interesting game. Bowling Green hosting Fordham. It's 15 points. That's what Bowling Green's favored by. Central Connecticut taking on Central Michigan. Central Michigan favored by 32. Take the Central Michigan there. Arkansas Pine Bluff taking on Arkansas. Arkansas favored by 50.5 tonight. Taking Arkansas. Duquesne at Toledo. Toledo favored by 27.5. I'll take Toledo in that one. 8 again. We already talked about that. We just talked about those two. North Carolina, Minnesota. I believe that game has actually been pushed to 8 o'clock. I think I saw on Twitter due to weather in Minnesota. That's an intriguing matchup here, week 1. You have Minnesota versus North Carolina. That's on Fox. You can watch that at Fox tonight. UNC favored by 2. I'll go with Vegas on this one. I think UNC is going to win. I think UNC can have a good season this year. And the one I kind of already spoiled this pick earlier, but the one that we were talking about earlier on the show, Colorado hosting North Dakota State. Colorado favored by 10.5. I don't know if Colorado's got this. I don't know. Brennan says North Dakota State, not the North Dakota State that you're used to seeing. So I'll safe bet here. I'll take Colorado, but it's definitely going to be an interesting one. We got Jacksonville State taking on Coastal Carolina. That game has Jacksonville State favored by 3.5. I'll take Jacksonville in this one. UAB hosting Alcorn State. UAB favored by 29.5. I will take UAB. Tulane, who Kansas State goes to next week, taking on Southeastern Louisiana. I'll take Tulane. That's 28-point favorite. Tulsa, Northwestern State. Tulsa favored by 37. I'll stick with that. Illinois, Eastern Illinois. Illinois favored by 28.5. I'll take that. And the final game tonight, we've got some West Coast action late night on True TV. On True TV here. That's the first game True TV's football-wise is going to get to air this year. San Jose State versus Sacramento State. Vegas thinks this is going to be a close one. I'll go with it being a close one as well. That has San Jose favored by 1.5. This should be a good late night watch if you're up late night tonight. I'll take for, you college football sickos that are going to be up late at night on a Thursday to watch college football. I am going to take San Jose State in this one. Should be obviously an interesting game. So a slate of games tomorrow we'll talk about as well. That should be interesting tomorrow. A few games tomorrow night. But that will do it for this segment here from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. It's the Youngest in Charge movement with Spencer DePuy. Will be back for a Royals preview segment. Maybe some Ask Me Anything as well. Put your Ask Me Anything in the YouTube comments. Unfortunately, I cannot access the text line right now due to an outage that we have with the text line. So go on YouTube or Facebook, put them in the comments, and ask me anything, sports related, non-sports related, food related, anything you want to ask me, and I will answer it as I can on the air. But we'll have more next. Royals preview in AMA, plus we got Final Word and Overtime coming up here on 580 Sports Talk Live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios on 580 WIBW. Welcome back to this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Spencer hanging with you solo for this last part of the show. Brennan Dorzinski, I believe they have arrived in Emporia for the Turnpike Tussle turnover to Classic Country 106.9 for kickoff at 7 p.m. as Washburn takes on Emporia State for their season opener tonight for MIAA football. Should be a great one. Gunnar Gundy getting the start. He is the starting quarterback. The Oklahoma State transfer for Emporia State. Thankfully, they did name a starter because Brendan got the depth chart and it just had 4 names and or. So they did decide a name, or they did decide Gunnar Gundy as the starter. I feel like that was to be expected, though. And then Brendan Dan Lucero is en route to KCK to Children's Mercy Park for the Kansas Jayhawks season opener as they take on FCS Lindenwood, again playing in KCK for the first 2 non-con games, or for the first 2 games that are non-con games, because of the stadium renovations. Then for the conference games, they'll move to Arrowhead for the conference games. We do have some breaking news in here just 5 minutes ago from Adam Schefter of ESPN, senior NFL insider. There will be no trade. The Ayuk drama is over. The 49ers and receiver Brandon Ayuk have reached agreement today on a 4-year extension that will contractually tie the wide receiver to San Francisco for the next 5 seasons per ESPN sources. The drama is over and a deal, not a trade, is in place. I think we all figured out this was going to happen at some point. This was going to have to happen, right? Like, it was going to have to happen. He was going to stay there. He wasn't going anywhere. Patriots had a great offer. Well, the Patriots, they're in rebuilding mode. He wants to win. He wants to win a Super Bowl, right? And the best chance he's got right now is to do it in San Francisco. His extension is 4 years, $120 million. That puts him tied with Tyreek Hill for the 5th highest paid wide receiver. You have Justin Jefferson at $35 million per year basis, I should say. CD Lamb at 34, AJ Brown at 35, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 30.02, gets the 4th spot barely, and then Tyreek and Ayuk at 30, Justin Waddle at 28.25, and Devontae at 28. The 49ers will enter the 2024 season with 8 players earning an average annual salary of 15 or more million. Ayuk 30, Nick Bosa 34, Deebo Samuel 23.85, Trent Williams 23.01, Javon Hargrove 21, Fred Warner 19.045, Christian McCaffrey 19, and George Kittle 15. All that with the biggest contract of them all. Brock Purdy is going to be looming next year. Obviously, them re-signing Brandon Ayuk gives them the opportunity now to turn their attention to left tackle Trent Williams, who's been holding out since camp started and is being fined $50,000 each day. We talked about this yesterday. He did it in Washington. Why would he not do it again? Hold out. But that is the breaking news here during this segment, as I thought I was going to talk Royals baseball, but breaking news as it just comes across from my ESPN notification now. That's big news. Let's talk Royals here. We've got just a few minutes left in the regular part of the show. Then we've got overtime when we're here. Back our interview from Michael Swain of Fog.net as KU opens the season later tonight at Children's Mercy Park in KCK against FCS Lindenwood. The Royals, they're opening their series in Houston tonight with Brady Singer on the mound. We'll get you the starting lineup here. Starting at second base, batting leadoff, Michael Massey. Hitting second, playing shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr. Hitting third, playing first base, Vinny Pasquantino. Batting in the cleanup spot, playing catcher tonight, Salvador Perez. The designated hitter in the 5th spot is Paul DeYoung. Playing left, MJ Melendez in the 6th spot. 7th spot is third baseman Miguel Garcia. 8th spot, center fielder Kyle Isbell. And in right field, you have Garrett Hampson to round out the lineup. The least excited I am about a player in the lineup is Garrett Hampson, but what options do you have, right? Not very many. Houston obviously is a team that is fighting to get back to where they thought they could be this year. They thought they'd be better, even though they are, in fact, 71-62. They just thought they'd be more dominant. They thought they'd be, like close to 80 wins, closing in on 80 wins, not just at 71 wins. I mean, they're still leading their division, but that's because Seattle's just completely thrown it away, 3.5 games back there. Seattle had the lead for a bulk of the time, but 4-game set down in Houston for the Royals. By their standards, they need to get back in the win column. Still 1 game back. Let me check. I don't know if the Guardians are playing tonight. Let me double check. I guess a lot of games. Yeah, so the Guardians are off tonight, so they could tie them if they do, in fact, win tonight. So they tie the spot once again. It'd be great for them. Obviously, Brady Singer on the bump, being opposed by Hunter Brown with a 3.72 ERA, 11-7 on the season. Obviously, the Royals lineup against them should be pretty good. That's a 7:10 first pitch tonight. If you're not in the direct area, maybe you're like our listener in Texas, you can watch the game free. It's the game MLB game of the day. In case you were, in fact, wondering, it is the game of the day if you're out of the Kansas City Royals market. But that begins the 4-game set for them. And tomorrow, big weekend lining up, I think, for the Royals. If they can win tonight, set the tone for another 4-game set. Then they got Lugo, Reagans on Saturday, and they have yet to name a starter on Sunday, obviously, with the injury there to Michael Lorenzen. They've yet to name a starter. It'll probably be Alec Marsh. They'll probably call him back up, but obviously they're not going to do that until they need to. It was Michael Lorenzen going down. You got to venture to guess it's going to be Alec Marsh getting the start Sunday, but a big series in Houston for the Royals against division leader of the AL West, the Houston Astros, which is funny enough because it's such a bad division this year. The AL West is. The Royals are second in their division, and they have 4 more wins than the Astros. And if they sweep them, hypothetically, right, they'd have 79 wins, and the Astros would have 71 wins. That's just crazy to me, the way different divisions shake out. But it should be a good one down in Houston this weekend. Brady Singer gets the ball tonight. And we'll recap that game tomorrow. But Brady Singer looking to get the win tonight on the mound for the Royals as they take on the Astros. 7:10 first pitch. Pre-game coverage, Royals Radio Network, begins here at 6:30. We'll have some overtime coming up next. Let me see what we got in here as far as some questions. I got about a minute before I got to hit this final break. Somewhere in the area you want to go or that you haven't done yet? I want to go to a Chiefs game. That's we're probably not going to be covering one this year, and I probably won't be able to get one because of the cost of them. I am excited for high school football. Very excited. Going to do sidelines next week. All the Friday games I'll be doing sidelines, and then our select Thursday games I'll be doing play-by-play for the majority, if not all of them. Let me see. Favorite player of all time for the Washington Commanders franchise. I've got 3. I've got a top 3. It is Sean Taylor, Santana Moss, and Chris Cooley. I've met Chris Cooley so many times just because of where I lived and the proximity of where he lived. If I had to pick an all-time favorite out of that, it'd probably be Chris Cooley just because of the amount of times that I've talked to him in person and met him. So that would be my answer. What do I think of Benson? I think he's a great option. He's going to learn under Zach Ertz this year. It should be, who's going to learn under Zach Ertz this year and see what he can do next year. We'll take our final break of the day. When we come back, we'll have final word next from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. Wrapping up the show, Spencer here solo. Dan Lucero's covering KU as they take on FCS Lindenwood. You can see his instant reaction later on YouTube. See his write-up on WIBW.com and follow along on his Twitter at Dan Lucero Show. Brendan Dorzinski and the crew for Washburn. They're down in Emporia as Emporia State takes on Washburn for the season opener. You can catch that on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. My final word tonight. Royals get back in the win column and an easy win for KU. We'll see you tomorrow. For Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero, I'm Spencer Puig saying so long from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios.